And just like that, the long-awaited sequel to Blue Ink is finally here. And because I'm still addicted to behind-the-scenes stuff, let's take a look at 50 facts that went behind this story. Number 1. The Lovers and the Dreamers takes place about a year after the events of Blue Ink. Number 2. The title is, of course, from the Muppets song Rainbow Connection. I felt the title made sense as the story has 2 focus points, Blueberry and Ink, who are the lovers, and Pappy and Nightmare, who are the dreamers. Number 3. For a number of reasons, Snowball left the channel a little under halfway through the writing phase. This left me as the only writer for the story. Number 4. Luckily, I had a friend who was willing to illustrate the story in exchange for short stories and recipes. Number 5. The Mayor of Halia is a nickname she asked to be called when given credit to distance this story from her actual DeviantArt account. It's a reference to a game we like to play. Number 6. Apparently, the Mayor of Halia and I have something in common. We both talk to our characters when we're working on an art piece. Number 7. That being said, I still ran the nightmare and action scenes past Snowball. Snowball's talent is coming up with moments that are scary and or violent. I didn't want anything like that without the expert seal of approval. Number 8. I also had trouble with the proposal scene. I didn't want either of the two to be the girl of the relationship, because that's not how gay relationships work. As a result, I didn't know what kind of ring Sans should receive. Luckily, a friend of mine in the LGBTQ community helped me research this and come up with a solution. Number 9. This is the first full story written on Google Docs. Initially, this was so Snowball would have direct influence in the writing process, back when she was still on board, but it proved to be useful since my laptop wouldn't have enough memory for the story. Number 10. Muffet was originally going to appear at the end of the first chapter. I dropped this at last minute as I felt the chapter was too widespread as it is, and the scene didn't add a lot to the story. Number 11. I'm actually not fond of Dream's new design, but Snowball loved it and I agreed to use it. When Snowball left, I kept the new outfit, mostly because I didn't want to rewrite large sections of Chapter 2, plus the Mayor of Halia liked it. Number 12. That being said, I did insist they keep the old cape due to the emotional significance behind it. It was given to Dream by Nightmare before he was corrupted. So I guess in reality, this Dream is a bit of a hybrid of the 2 designs. Number 13. Initially, the image for Chapter 2 was going to be Ink proposing to Sans, but neither artist wanted to draw this. If any fans want to draw this, please send it to me! I want to see it! Number 14. I briefly considered having a scene where Ink goes to Muffet and asks about the brothers' past. It didn't fit in well with the flow of the story, so I ended up swapping it out with Nightmare revealing it instead. Number 15. There were several times where I worried that the story's pacing was too slow. Sometimes I'd spend an entire hour just shifting around scenes and editing out ideas to speed things up. In the end, I still feel Blue Ink was better paced. Number 16. One of the hardest things I had to do to fix the pacing was find a quick and easy way to describe how the multiverse worked. The idea of it being a basket of fruit was inspired by my favorite manga, Fruits Basket. Number 17. While I think Blue Ink was better paced, I think Nightmare was a better villain than Error, as he comes closer to winning, has a more thought out plan, and just a better presence and reveal. Number 18. I'm not the only one who thinks this. I sometimes test out story ideas with kids I babysit, and they all agreed Nightmare was a better bad guy. Number 19. I don't go deep into Dream's backstory, as I really don't have anything to add to Dream's canon other than how he met Ink. At some point, I plan to do a short that fully details these 2 meeting for the first time. Number 20. For those of you who don't know Dream's story, here's a short summary. Dream and Nightmare were once loving brothers created by the Tree of Feelings. They protected it, and it brought positivity and negativity to the multiverse through its apples. But one day, Nightmare ate an apple of negativity, corrupting him and causing him to destroy the tree. To prevent the multiverse from plunging into a permanent emotional darkness, Dream found and ate the last apple of positivity, turning him into the being he is today. Number 21. While this story was in its early stages, Ink's backstory and lack of a soul was revealed by Kamyet, his creator. After some debate with Snowball, I decided that this version of Ink would still be Error's other half and still have a soul. Otherwise, we'd have to rewrite and re-record Blue Ink. If anyone doesn't like that, you can think of it as an AU of Ink. Number 22. I'm sure many people who like this story will immediately think of the Star Sanses. While I think the concept of that trio is awesome, Swap Sans is never going to officially team up with Ink and Dream. He's just an average Sans, and Ink and Dream will still do a majority of their missions without him. Number 23. As I've mentioned in a previous video, Sans and Papyrus' backstory was inspired by Ask Underswap Paps. Please give that comic a lot of love. It is probably the best Underswap story out there. There'll be a link to this in the description. Number 24. Dream's voice is me speaking in a high-pitched tone,
and then lowering it 7 half steps.
Nightmare's
8 half steps lower.
Number 25. One of the purposes of Flueberry was to test out voices for Muffet and Alphys. In the end, Muffet was fine on her own, but Alphys needed her voice lowered 2 half steps. Number 26. I also made a small mistake with Alphys' voice, and I didn't notice it until I'd already had it up for a few days. Alphys is meant to have a bit of gravel in her voice that I forgot to add. Number 27. The couch the mayor of Halia drew for Ink's place was based on a painting called A Dog Named Picasso. Number 28. There was actually a pretty funny, if hard to notice, mistake in the rough sketch for Chapter 2. The mayor of Halia accidentally drew the ring on his hand bone rather than his finger bone. Number 29. Another mistake she often made was putting her signature in the corner. The problem with this is that the pictures were sent via photograph, meaning the corners got cut off when I cut the edges of the paper, and I had to reposition the signature to keep things legal. Number 30. On a more positive note on the new artist, her cover actually did give me the idea of Papyrus having black on his jacket in Chapter 3, which provided a nice bit of foreshadowing and ended Chapter 3 on a much more solid note than the original draft did. Number 31. I make mistakes too. There's a small mistake in Chapter 1. Sans mentioned that the icing should be raspberry since reddish purple is a color Muffet likes. In reality, raspberry icing wouldn't be that color. Black raspberry icing is what I was thinking of. Whoops! Number 32. I am not a smoker myself, so writing with a chain-smoking character can be problematic. I had a bit of trouble trying to do the math and figure out how many cigarettes Papyrus should smoke in the hour and a half in Chapter 5. Number 33. However, the hardest scene to write was the wedding at the very end. This was partly due to how much of weddings is gender role based, which is tricky to translate to 2 men getting married without making one of them the girl. As I stated before, I know that's not how real homosexual relationships work, and I wanted to show a real relationship without offending anyone. Number 34. The other problem was just my own inexperience with weddings. I'm not married myself, and I've only been to 3 weddings that I can remember. So I'm not exactly an expert on the subject. This is why I just cut the wedding scene out. Sometimes things are just best left to the reader's imagination. Number 35. It isn't stated in the story, but the reason Nightmare is able to attack Papyrus when Error can no longer is because he enters the universes through the subconscious mind of its inhabitants, rather than directly. Number 36. It took several rewrites to figure out exactly what Sans should say to Papyrus in order to help him fight back against Nightmare. The problem was, I didn't want Sans to actually learn what Nightmare had shown Papyrus, so Sans had to find another way to help him without knowing the true root of the issue. Not an easy thing to do, let alone write someone else doing. Number 37. That being said, I did briefly consider some dialogue where Sans does learn the truth. It was scrapped as I felt Sans likely doesn't know when Kara arrives. Number 38. This is important because, while it isn't stated in the story, these events take place a few years before a true pacifist run, with no resets afterwards, so I couldn't change the characters too much. Number 39. The reason Ink wouldn't be around when the true pacifist run would happen is he'd be off on a mission. Plus, he knows better than to interfere when important timeline events are taking place. Number 40. Initially, I was going to have Sans and Papyrus attack with both blue and orange attacks. I changed it to just blue in order to help them discover Nightmare's weakness. Number 41. It was actually awesome to write about the bone attacks in the story, as they're never used in blue ink. Number 42. Fresh Sans' appearance in the final chapter wasn't a hint of anything to come, the way Dreams was in blue ink. It was just a silly cameo I couldn't resist throwing in. Number 43. I'm not completely against a fresh story someday, but he's a little hard to write for, and I don't have any solid ideas on how to use his character the best. Number 44. I briefly considered having Creative Room turned into the art studio for ink, but opted against this as the room was designed to recharge ink, meaning it had to be a place ink could rest as well. Number 45. It's not stated in the story, but Ink's best man was Dream. After all, he does still consider Dream a friend and ally, even if Dream doesn't treat him equally the same way Sans does. Number 46. Originally, the wedding preparations were going to take more of a center stage as a B-plot that made Papyrus even more resentful. This proved difficult to do though, as it made the story seem scattered. Number 47. On top of that, it just made Papyrus seem more cruel whenever he lashed out at Sans and Ink. In order to make this story hit the right notes, Papyrus had to stay in a sympathetic light. Thus, in the end, I just shoved all the wedding plans until the end. Number 48. At the moment, I'm not planning on having Sans meet any other interdimensional beings. There are way too many to explore, and making them all connect to Blueberry somehow would just make it more gimmicky if anything. Number 49. That being said, all future stories will take place in the same multiverse Blue Ink takes place in. I'm still deciding whether to add Easter eggs around to tie it all together. Number 50. As much as I loved working with these characters, after the short about Ink and Dream, I'm going to tackle a different AU. So stay tuned to find out what. That's it for now, guys. Hope you all enjoyed this. As you can tell, I've got another short coming, and then more AUs coming. So stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy those as well.